Hi, I'm Carl Stabe and I'm a systems thinker, and I really want to emphasize the importance of applying first principles thinking as you're improving your systems. So you have a business, you have a team, you're used to doing things a certain way. It's how your team functions. Now, often you just keep doing it or you patchwork it, you fix some things here or there, but you don't look at it from the foundation on up. And this is what's important about first principles. So when you do this, you can save so much time, so much money. It takes a little effort up front, but as you do this more and more, it gets quicker and quicker. And pretty soon you're doing this so quickly, you realize you wish you started doing this years ago. Okay, so Elon Musk is really famous for this. This is not his invention, first principles. This is a age-old concept. But the idea is to look at things with fresh eyes. We often, talk about this in Buddhism, but look at it from a beginner's mindset. And this isn't easy, especially as a leader. You look at things because you have all this context from previous jobs, from previous things. But you have to find a way to look at it from a fresh perspective so you can break it down, reconstruct it, so you're saving time and you're saving money. So Elon Musk is famous for saving tens of millions of dollars with asking just one question. And you can do the same thing with your company. It's called first principles thinking. So as you're going through a problem or you're going through a process or a system, you realize anything can be improved. Anything can be optimized. Things can be deleted. AI can be added, and I think this is an important point. AI is going to take over more and more tasks within a business. The more that you do this now and start to realize how you can reconfigure your systems and your processes, the more time and money you'll save. Okay, so I'm going to break this down like people are fifth graders, because I like when people simplify things for me. I'm not the brightest bulb in the batch, and I want things explained clearly and simply. And so as you're learning something new, all of us feel like that dim bulb, right? Because we're like, what does he mean by that? So here it goes, fifth grade version. So you got a birdhouse, right? And let's say you got 10 kids. And one kid in particular doesn't start right away. The other kids look at the instructions and just start, building. One kid stops and he raises his hand and he says, "What kind of bird is this for?" And the teacher's like, "I don't know, a robin," right? These questions were never asked. You just put this thing in front of you and you start building. And this is what we often do when we come into a company. We take over a new leadership role. We start doing things the way things were done, and we don't really think about how we can reconstruct it from the foundation up. So this kid starts saying, okay, well, if it's for a robin, I looked at my phone, like this hole seems a little big. This seems more like for a blue jay, right? And, probably the college kids or whoever, if this is a camp or something, like, just shut up, kid, just build the birdhouse. And this is where we are pushed by others just to follow the rules, right? And this is where you can separate yourself as a leader and start to say, oh, what can we do to improve this? What can we do to, help the bird get into the hole instead of just flying straight in? Maybe you add a little post on the end so it's easier to land. Maybe you create an angle for the hole. Whatever it is, you start to do a little research. You start to understand what this bird might need, and you make it more inviting, more likely to be used, more likely to be lived in, right? Okay, so back to Elon Musk. So Elon Musk is famous for this, but he wanted to start a rocket company, SpaceX, which recently went public. And in this public atmosphere, they have a moat. And that moat is the rocket takes off and then it can land. Most rockets would just take off, would cost millions of dollars, and then that would be the end of that rocket and they wouldn't be able to reuse it. So Elon Musk, in his first principles thinking, was like, okay, I'll have somebody else build it. But in his mind, I want to be able to land it back again. And so if somebody else builds it, you're kind of stuck with their instructions, right? And he was quoted $50 million for a rocket. And he's like, 50? Like, why? And so he looked at all the materials it would take to build a rocket. And he realized he could build a rocket at just the material cost at 2% of what they were asking for. So he decided to build his own rockets, right? And so in that process, he was also able to reconfigure from first principles how they might be able to, land the rocket back in orbit. And so when you're doing these things, when you're starting to look at how to build a system, build a process, build a product, you can start to look at what you could do better and what systems you can improve upon. So you just want to make sure as you're doing this, you're building this birdhouse. And most businesses, you've designed and you've built your process and your systems in a way that helps, complete this job, complete this work. But it might be done like that for 4 or 5 years, and it's like, okay, this is the way we've done it. How often does a company, how often does a leader say, well, let's break this down and start to reconfigure how we do it? If it's a simple email, it's not worth it, right? It's not worth, reconfiguring the whole process because it's a simple email. But if it's a rocket, if it's a product that you're working on, a landing page, how do you start to reconfigure how this process and this system works so you can save time, you can save money, and it's more effective? That's another key part too, right? Because eliminating things or adding AI things doesn't always, work. It's just you need to be able to make sure it actually does the job better. Okay. So, we've talked about this, extensively, but just think about things that you've done and different approvals that you might need or different reviews you might need. This is usually a larger company falls into these traps, right? So you have to look at where there's waste, where there's time, being wasted, and then how do you fix that? Okay, so the 3 questions are vital to first principles thinking. So first question is, what is this process, product, whatever it is, actually for? What is it doing? And this is where you need that fresh mindset, that beginner's mindset, and that will help you understand how to actually do these things and build these things. So once you do, you start to look at, what the outcomes are when you deliver this thing and why it matters. What is a way to review and be able to, understand where there might be traps along the way as you develop this process or as you do this process or as you create this product. And then number 2, what must be true for this outcome to happen? So as you're looking at things, what's true? Do you need this type of hole for this birdhouse? Do you need this button here? Do you need this title here? If it's a landing page or whatever. And you start to kind of reconstruct these bricks. And often, and this is one thing, to think about, is it's a test, right? You can rebuild something like a landing page and then you A/B test it. Try it out for a little bit. It depends on your traffic. You might be able to compare it side by side next to it, or you might replace it for a week or 2 and then see what happens. And then once you get data, you can then say, okay, this is working, it's not. So the question number 3 is, if we rebuild this from scratch, what survives? What will live on? And this is scary because to realize you've done so many things a certain way, you realize, oh, we've wasted so much hours and time. And in our brains, we want to justify all that time we've wasted. So we try to keep it the same. And this is what a lot of people struggle with. They don't want to admit that. And so they keep doing it, or they don't make the necessary changes that will actually really improve. So if you look at a client invoicing process, right? It might be 12 steps. You look at all these major bricks, part of the foundation, from a customer gets an accurate bill, money arrives. What is the customer experience, right? What do they feel? Are they, feeling, why am I paying this now? What are you doing to make that process easier? So the key part of all this, you don't need a better version of the current process. You just need to reconfigure this so it's tighter, more efficient, more effective. So why don't most owners do this? Like we talked about, you're used to doing things a certain way. This birdhouse, everybody built it straight the way they were told to do. All these kids except one. And my goal is to help you be one of those people so you can make your systems more efficient, more effective. So the idea here is, creating those fresh eyes, creating that type of, view, that perspective that allows you to see it, as a beginner. And then this is exactly what a scientist mindset does. You look at these things, you review these things, you question your assumptions of why you've done it this way. And as you're doing this, you start to rebuild, you start to become more efficient, you start to make more money. And that's the key to a big key to all this. Not just, okay, we're going to save time, but yeah, what is the goal? The goal is to make this product, make this process more effective, more efficient. So you get better results on the back end. The customers are happy. They're more likely to use this thing. They're more likely to actually share this with other people because it's so good. And that is what First Principles helps you do. So as you're going through this and you're looking at how to improve your different processes, I would suggest having somebody, and usually if from a different department, bring in a consultant, a coach, somebody that can help you have those fresh eyes perspective, will make it better for you, will help you ask those questions that maybe you don't want to ask yourself, or maybe somebody on your team is entrenched in this process or this product, and you need that fresh perspective. All right. If you want more videos like this, share. You can also go to systematicleader.co and learn more about systems thinking and how to have your systems really be a powerful first principles, thinking inside of your company and on your team. Thanks.